Hey, Street Talk and other stuff, Mike, Mad Dog, Magnati. Thank you for tuning in today. I really appreciate being here with you. I appreciate having you welcome me into your home. And I just hope you got a great Monday, okay? I really like the way the weather's going. As you know I blather about this all the time, but spring is upon us. We have all of spring and summer to look forward to. And this is just one of my favorite times of year. But hey, I appreciate you being here today because I have got a very good guest, an old friend of mine, somebody who is very vital to this community and going to continue to be in a new role. So I want you to stick around because we got a good show today. Street Talk and other stuff, you stick around, we will be right back.
A ductless unit from Carrier can keep anyone comfortable. Take Shelly, for instance. She finds me time in her new attic-turned-home gym. And with her Carrier ductless unit, the temperature is always perfect. No matter how intense her workout gets. Carrier. Total comfort, totally happy.
Turn to the experts, Carrier and Alpine Air. Heat and air, call Alpine Air.
Hey there folks, Blueberry Carrie here to invite you on out to Blueberry Hills to experience some real treats. Take a look at our homemade cream pies, our amazing cheesecakes, and don't forget our famous banana pudding. Remember, we're more than just great treats. People come from all over the world to experience what has been called one of the best destination restaurants in the Pacific Northwest. So come on out and see what all the fuss is about. Blueberry Hills in Manson. It's where the world is coming to.
Sit pretty with spring savings now at Boswell's. Get $200 off all stressless recliners and ottomans, classic power-based recliners, home office chairs, and each seat of a stressless sofa, love seat, or sectional. Plus, get 10% off the new stressless Sky mattress and $50 off each stressless Laurel or Mint dining chair. Shop Boswell's, 2915 Easy Street in Wenatchee.
Since 1932, Camp Seneca, nestled on the beautiful shores of Lake Wenatchee, has provided children grades 1 through 12 with the ideal location for kids to learn new skills, have fun, and make friends while creating memories that will last a lifetime. Camp Seneca's rustic log cabins and their staff serve to provide each group a unique summer camp experience. Register for Camp Seneca today, www.campfirencw.org.
Okay, we are back, and I want to introduce my friend, Pastor Mike Malmin.
Good to be here, Michael.
Good to have you
Nice
here.
to have you.
Now, Mike is the new executive director for Serve Wenatchee Valley. He's the third executive director. Serve Wenatchee Valley is an organization either you are very familiar with or maybe not familiar with at all, but it is a vital organization to our community. We're going to hear about why, and Pastor Malmin is going to be has taken the reins for this organization, and I just wanted you here to tell us about yourself, tell us about Serve Wenatchee, and tell us about your plans for the future with this vital organization.
Well, Serve Wenatchee's been around for over 20 years.
Right.
Serve Wenatchee started with some churches coming together. If you listen to Bob Shepard, who was our original executive director, he was told by people all across the country, you can't bring churches together to do this sort of work. And he and a group of other pastors said, no, I think we can. And so this idea of coming together, they felt sent a strong message to the Wenatchee Valley that churches were here to serve and churches here were to meet people's needs. And so that's what Serve Wenatchee is. It's had it's morphed over the years to meet changing demands, to meet different demographics. But we are really a faith-based organization, Christian to our core, but we work with churches, we work with local businesses, lots of great local businesses, and a whole host of individual donors, and literally throughout our events throughout the year, thousands of volunteers to meet needs here in the Valley.
And I like what Bob said. We recently had a meeting for local churches to talk about Serve Wenatchee Valley's work. I like what Bob said, that this organization was formed to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ to this community. And I think that's something that, like you say, there's been different ways this has been expressed, but you have, well, Serve Wenatchee Valley's done a great job doing that, so.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I pastored a local church here for 12 years.
Actually, I was going to ask you that. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, I have been all over the place. I'm a West Side kid. I married an East Side girl. Her dad was
smart man.
Her dad was a pastor throughout Eastern Washington. He was, and they pastored points as far away as Panama. And
Really?
so she got to see the world, and she's just somebody who loves Jesus. And but when we married, I was a journalist. I was actually working at TV stations, mid-market TV stations around the Pacific Northwest. Started out as a reporter and became an anchor. And
So this is nothing. You're an old hand. At this
no,
TV
I'm not. You know, nothing so glamorous as this, right? But this is.
Yeah, listen to this guy.
Nothing quite as glamorous as this, but it was a good training for me. It was a job I loved. I got to meet lots of fascinating, interesting people. But around 1995, I was at some of you remember Promise Keepers, and I was at a Promise Keepers event in Eugene, Oregon.
Okay.
And a pastor named Jack Hayford was giving a talk, and
That's a name from the.
you remember Jack
I
Hayford?
remember
Jack
that name,
Hayford,
yeah. Oh,
and he
yeah.
said, "Some of you are being called to leave your ministry or leave your vocation and go into ministry."
Right.
And it was like a bolt of lightning hit me. I
Really?
don't know. I struggle with the mysterious a little, but I knew at that point I was going to be leaving journalism. And 2 years later, I was working at a church. A couple years after that, I was going back to get my master's in religion and to begin pastoring. And was a youth pastor for a long time. Youth pastoring is the only job I ever missed.
Really?
Still
Okay.
the only job I ever missed. And did that. And then I pastored pretty long term. I was in Tillamook, Oregon for a couple years, 11 years in Olympia, Washington as an associate at a pretty big church over there. And then I was a pastor here at the Wenatchee Nazarene Church for 12 years.
Right.
Last 3 years, I've been working for an organization that works with churches in transition and in crisis. So I've been pastoring churches in Centralia, Washington, and then in Seattle, which are two wildly different neighborhoods, as you know.
I'll bet.
And good experience for me leading churches back to health and helping them find a new pastor. But when this job opened up, I thought that's something that intrigues me because helping people who are struggling was a passion of Jesus, and it's a passion of mine.
Right. Well, I remember the meeting we just had last week. You said that you've always been an advocate for the disenfranchised, I think is the term you used. And that, I liked hearing that, so, okay.
Well, you know, I learned that here in Wenatchee.
Okay.
I don't think that was a part of who I always have been.
Okay.
If you're familiar with the Valley, Wenatchee Nazarene sits 2 blocks away from our largest hospital, our largest medical center.
Right.
Central
And right across the
Washington.
street from the high school, too.
Yeah,
for that
right across
matter,
the street from the high school. And while I was at that church, we really developed a passion to care for our neighborhood. That's always been part of the DNA of that church. But working at that unique intersection gave me a real vision for a lot of things going on in the Valley.
Yeah.
For one, we were across the street from the high school.
Right.
And there was a period where at the church there we would have drug dealers, you know, in the parking lot after school.
Yeah.
So we had to work hard to chase them. One of the things we started there when I was there was a thing called lot dogs. Lot dogs.
Real? Oh, okay.
And on
All right,
Tuesday afternoon, we got the barbecues out. A lot of our senior adults came out. We just started making hot dogs.
Yeah.
And I think the first week we had 20 or something kids. We would have several hundred by the time that program. Before the
Really?
pandemic, we were running several hundred kids.
Okay,
we'd come
so
across
this is
the
how
street.
you responded to undesirables in your parking lot.
We served hot dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, we decided to serve hot dogs.
What a concept.
Yeah, and it was not my idea. We had a great youth pastor at the time, Stephen.
Yeah, but you didn't say no. You
Well,
know?
no, it was a great idea.
Yeah.
Why not? And you got to see sort of the diversity of that neighborhood.
Cool.
You got to see some kids that maybe it was, you know, a hot dog's hardly a nutritious item, but it was a meal for them.
Yeah.
It was a meal for them. And so that was one thing. I got to see our neighborhood.
Very cool.
Got to see our kids coming in. You know, we hosted a Spanish language church there, which was important to us. The other thing was, though, and this is where Serve Wenatchee really came in for me, and where I developed a passion for it. Being 2 blocks from that hospital, I think we shared a similar DNA with Saddle Rock Presbyterian,
Right.
in that probably more than any other churches in town, we received a lot of mental health walk-ins and people that were banged up and battered, that had been left by the roadside,
Sure.
that when they were discharged from the hospital, they would walk into one of our 2 churches
Yeah.
and ask for things that we were not fully prepared to provide. A meal, finding help with lodging or rental assistance. But, you know, Bob Shepard reached out to me early on in my time here in the Valley, and I realized we had a partner in Serve Wenatchee that day.
Yeah.
And that we could, we had a resource where we could send them to, where these things would be provided, where needs would be met, where churches were coming together and helping people. You mentioned the hands and feet of Jesus.
Right.
You know, loving the least, the last, the unloved, the undesirables. Jesus routinely was hanging out with the wrong kind of people.
Exactly. Yeah. It's incredible how many of us fail to grasp that. Let me put it that way. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that great anyway. But it was, you know, so it was a really a great thing to be able to partner with Serve at that time. And, you know, now I'm on the other side. You know, this is I think day 16 for me.
Right.
So what I don't know far exceeds what I do know. But I think one of the things I'm learning as I sit in our offices throughout the week and watch folks walk in down off Rondo and Wenatchee Avenue is that we're dealing with a lot of older folks who are struggling. We're dealing with significant numbers of single parents. One of the things, if you talk to Tom Neese,
Yeah.
and the prior
And Tom being the
previous director,
the previous executive director.
if you talk to Tom, is that, you know, one of the things we started to see during the pandemic was folks that had never walked into this kind of ministry before needing help, people who had lost their jobs.
Right.
And so we have a lot of single parents. We have a lot of working poor. You know, I've mentioned a couple times, 2 weeks ago I signed a rental assistance check for just $212. I thought that was interesting.
Right.
Because what that told me was we were bridging a gap of helping to keep somebody in the home, and we're doing it in Jesus' name.
Right.
We're doing it in Jesus' name, and so that's a big one for us.
Yeah.
Because those are the kind of, Jesus said, whatever you have done for the least of these,
Right. Exactly. You have done for me.
you've done for me. And so that's a high priority for us. We have a lot of little kids walk through our building with their parents as they use our Fresh Hope Market.
And I had a client that you guys fed, probably are still feeding now. So I mean, so I was well aware how vital your food market was.
Yeah.
So.
Thursday last week was kind of an important day for me. I was in a business talking to one of the people at that business, and somebody walked on and goes, "Where are you from?" And I go, "Serve Wenatchee." And he goes, "You know, this is a guy fully employed." He goes, "You need to know, when we moved to the Valley 8 years ago, my wife and I didn't have 2 sticks to rub together. You helped us furnish our apartment and helped bridge a gap."
Cool. Yeah.
I was in at a coffee shop. The barista, I was talking to her, and she was going, I grew up poor. You helped our family multiple times. I hear those stories, and that touches my heart, because that's churches coming together. It's also businesses. We have businesses that love partnering with us, because it shows that business to the community as a group of people, a business that cares about this family.
Right.
And by the way, when we create healthy families that are financially stable, we create customers. And that's an important thing too. Private donors.
We'll say a little bit more about that creating.
Well, I think Serve Wenatchee is a unique niche.
Sure.
And I'd like to see that niche expanded.
Okay.
But our niche right now is, we have homelessness in the Valley. A lot of the homelessness is very visible. We have the safe camps now.
Right.
You don't have to drive far on some streets to see people who are clearly living in perhaps a dilapidated motor home.
Yeah.
In South Wenatchee, you'll see people on the streets. We have missions down there that are serving meals throughout the day.
Right.
Vital things.
Right.
We're different. we're different. We partner with groups, we partner with local missions. We want to be good partners with them. I've been talking to some of them lately about how we can increase those partnerships. But our primary fundamental focus is doing whatever we can do to keep working families, people who are struggling, people who maybe had a medical bill that knocked them off. I mean, who hasn't had that?
Right.
Who have had a car bill come due, keeping them in their homes. So rental assistance is enormous for us.
Yeah.
And we work with people because we want to see them have some equity in that too. That it's not just a handout, but we want to partner with them in keeping them in their home.
Right.
The food market, if we can lower grocery expenses, the furniture market, if we can get somebody in a home, okay, great. But if they don't have any furniture, if we can get them a bed, a dresser, you know, that goes a long way. And what you're doing there is at least creating the potential for a healthier family environment.
Okay.
We want to do more in the area of creating self-sufficiency, and that's a future goal of ours. We were looking at some of those items before the pandemic, a program called Serve You, but as we all know, the pandemic shifted a lot of things in the valley.
There was a real wrench in the works for a lot of things, and you know.
Serve Wenatchee's focus went to a food bank down at Town Toyota Center,
Yeah.
and rental assistance and a lot of other things.
Right.
And you know what that also fueled was an increase in donations. People knew people were in crisis.
Yeah.
You know, we're in a little bit of a different situation right now, in that the pandemic is gone. It's behind us, but some of the issues still remain, and poverty still remains.
Right.
And so our charitable giving, which was amplified during the pandemic, some of those things have sort of subsided, and so we need to bring that out to the fore to say, no, there is a need. Our goal is to keep people in their homes. Once they're on the streets, it's much harder. Once they're living in a car, you know, I was in Walmart a week ago. I'm walking in, I walked by 2 cars where people were clearly living in their automobiles. If we can keep folks in their homes, that's healthier for the community, it's healthier for our neighborhoods, and it's healthier for those people who Jesus cares about.
And it's a lot more, you know, efficient to keep them there rather than try to get them back in. So, okay, hey, we're talking with Mike Malmin. Mike is the new executive director of Serve Wenatchee Valley. We're going to talk more about future plans for this organization, a little bit more about Mike himself in a minute, but we need to take a break. So, hey, Street Talk and other stuff. We will be right back. So.
Raising a family may have seemed overwhelming to your parents, but they weren't. Coach, teacher, life guide, caregiver. Family takes care of family. And as the circle of life continues, you now are their caregiver. It may seem overwhelming, but we're here to help you find the support services necessary so you can provide quality care to your elders.
Call Aging and Adult Care of Central Washington at 1-800-572-4459. Tiki Hawaiian Barbecue, family owned and operated on North Wenatchee Avenue, right next to Hooked on Toys. Tiki Hawaiian Barbecue uses only fresh ingredients handcrafted with love, including authentic Hawaiian barbecue and Japanese-style ramen noodle soups. And the bubble teas will keep you coming back for more. Enjoy the culinary tour of the Pacific Rim with Hawaiian barbecue lunches and combo plate classics, as well as ramen noodle soups. Tiki Hawaiian Barbecue. Enjoy their comfort food like you're one of the family. When your heating or cooling system is giving you trouble, call the diagnostic doctor from Dick's Heating and Air Conditioning.
Here's the culprit right here.
All joking aside, when you call Dick's, you're calling 35 years of experience at customer service right here in the Wenatchee Valley. Dick's strongly believes in repairing before replacing, and they service all major brands of HVAC units.
For more than 60 years, Crown Furniture and Mattress has been making North Central Washington the most comfortable place to live, one home at a time. We're offering store-wide savings and closeouts. Save on recliners, mattresses, dining, sofa and loves, occasional tables, and bedroom groups. Some items discounted to employee pricing. There's no better time to purchase quality at a great price. Limited to stock on hand. See us today at 736 South Wenatchee Avenue, across from Stan's.
Okay, we're back. Street Talk and Other Stuff. Talking with Pastor Mike Malmin, the new Executive Director of Wenatchee Valley. Okay, there's a lot historically that has been done well, but you, being the new guy, you've got stuff that you're thinking about that you can expand. So what may some of those areas be?
Yeah, you know, right now I'm evaluating what we are doing.
Yeah.
You know, our significant.
And something you told me before the show, that you're listening. You're doing a lot of listening.
I meet with
which
any,
I admire
right now
you
I want to
for,
listen to any pastor that wants to meet with me, I'll meet with them. Give me a call. Call Serve Wenatchee, we'll get something on the calendar. Any business leader that wants to meet, any concerned neighbor that wants to meet, anybody with an idea for Serve Wenatchee who wants to meet, call the office. Call Serve Wenatchee, 5091-HOPE. And look me up. But so stabilizing what we're currently doing, rental assistance, our Fresh Hope Market, our refined furniture ministry, our annual events, evaluating them. Those are huge deals for us, and they're very visible and important in the community because they impact thousands of people who receive things from us. The interesting thing to me, though, is when you're trying to think of the future of organizations, benevolent organizations, charities, that are working with the poor. You know, Jesus said the poor, you're always going to have them, but we have a responsibility to them.
Right.
And what's that going to look like in the future? I've been reading a lot of articles. You know, I'm not a futurist.
Right.
But there are folks that are pretty good at saying, here's where society is taking us. And some of these things are exciting, and some of them are very concerning.
Right.
You know, what we're seeing with advances in artificial intelligence and what we're seeing in advances with machines, robotics, machines doing the work of human beings, means that people maybe who have thought their job was secure over the years may be finding it's not so secure.
Right.
They may be replaced by technology. You don't have to go far, walk into a fast food restaurant. You can see that kiosks are replacing human beings.
Oh, I know. Went into exactly my experience. I looked at, what is this?
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, and for guys here in my age, that's a huge roadblock. We stare at those kiosks for a long time, not knowing what we're supposed to do.
Right.
But those things are you know, potentially going to be job killers. We don't know. And maybe they'll create more jobs. We don't know, but we need to be prepared for that. You know, we were not prepared for a global pandemic. And when a global pandemic hit, and all of the societal chaos that went along with it, and we can Monday morning quarterback it as much as we want, but the reality was it left a lot of people in need.
Right.
People lost jobs, people were sick, people died. People were who had previously never missed a rental or mortgage payment in their life, missed a couple.
Yeah, yeah.
So we need to be preparing and preparing for those kind of eventualities. One of the things I've done, I have met with a couple business owners, and one of the things that you've heard, and I think it accelerated during the pandemic, was the challenge in keeping employees.
Yes, a number of people have talked about that. But
And you know, I was talking to a guy doing some masonry at my house. Great guy. And I was talking to him about this because he was asking me. He'd seen that I was coming to the Valley. He was asking me about this and Serve Wenatchee's work. And I go, well, tell me about your payroll and your workers. And he goes, you know, he goes, I've got some guys who've been with me years, and then I've got guys that I struggle to keep.
right.
You know, they're here a few days, and you know, first week on the job, they're calling in sick, or they're not showing up. They're asking for payroll advances all the time. You know, and I've never, I don't even know what that means.
Right,
you
I know, I hear you. I hear
never
you.
even occurred to me.
It's a different world.
And one of the things that I've fostered for years. I was a foster parent for years. And one of the things that, as I worked through that system, was I realized that so many of our young people didn't grow up in what we would maybe call a normal environment, where there was two parents in the home, where they both went to work, where they went to work every day, came home at night, there was a meal on the table. And so there was,
and that the kids were expected to work a certain
and
level,
so they,
too.
you know, I grew up in that kind of normal, healthy, we used to call it a nuclear environment. I grew up in that sort of home, and I watched my parents go to work every day, and there's a certain amount of that. Somebody once told me that most of what we learn is caught, not taught.
Yeah.
And I caught from my parents that you get up and you work hard. It's just what you do. And And so when I was 16 years old, I got a job at the Big Scoop Sunday Palace, and I've pretty much had a job every day of my life since that time. But we have a lot of folks that didn't learn those skills.
Right.
And what they did see growing up was being on assistance all the time, and that became normative. And I wonder if there's a niche. This is something I want to explore for Serve Wenatchee to be involved in training people that come to us to be prepared for the workforce. In other words, we still want to be doing rental assistance. We want to be doing food. We want to be doing furniture, coats for the classroom, clothes for kids, all of these things. But we want to be giving them a way out. I was introduced to a guy, there's this great website called The Theology of Work. Friend of mine is the man that runs it, and he alerted me to this organization. It's a guy that owned a machine shop. I believe in the upper Midwest, I think Michigan, and he was an alcoholic. He got sober through the church, third generation owner of this sort of middling machine shop, and he just started wondering why workers wouldn't stick around. And so he started teaching this Christ-centered, values-based education and partnering with local people in the trades. That when they would be apprenticing people, they, as a requirement for their apprenticeship, they would come and take this values education that talked about saving, that talked about payroll advances are not a normal thing, that talked about work ethic, that talked about putting money aside for when you cannot work anymore. That talked about how to be a good employee and how to get along with your coworkers, that talked about social media. Social media is now a problem for employers. You don't want an employee that's chaos, right? And so there was this training that he partnered with other trades that was Christ-centered. And I want to explore that. That's 6 months out. That's not something I'm hopping on right away. But it's intriguing to me because when I was doing my interview for the job, they had an interview committee. It was one of the things I brought up, that I am deeply committed to feeding people that don't have food. I'm deeply committed to providing rental assistance for folks that don't. But one of the things that encouraged me, you've mentioned the meeting we had last week. One of the things that encouraged me, you probably caught it, was when Bob Shepard got up and started talking about former Serve Wenatchee recipients that are now managing a bank. That are now a loan officer, that are now, I want to see, it's the old axiom, it's beaten in the ground, but it's true, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish. We have a lot of young people who I love dearly. Some of them have lived in my home. Some of them are great workers. But they need to understand that work is good. And work is healthy. And work is really good for your self-esteem.
That's, I think, one of the most important things. So, and look, I don't mean to cut you off, Pastor.
Oh, cut me off.
Okay, but we got to take a break and come back. But okay, this is Mike Malmin. He's the Executive Director of Serve Wenatchee. You can hear there's some exciting things going on. We will have you back, okay? I promise to do that, okay? At least once a year, but probably more often to get stuff. But again, we're talking with Mike Malmin, Executive Director of Serve Wenatchee Valley, and I want to mention something he said earlier. If you are a pastor or a business leader or a church leader and you want to talk to him, his door and phone line is open. Contact the man. He's making a concerted effort to talk with people, get input, get ideas, so take advantage of it. But we will come back in a minute. So Street Talk and other stuff, you stick around. We will be right back. So.
Water is essential to living. From clean drinking water for good health to clean water for your pool or spa. Central Washington Water, your water experts. With whole home water filtration systems for your home's best water. Products and supplies to keep your pool and spa water crystal clear. To a full parts department. Count on Central Washington Water for expert help. Shop screen to screen. Come in or call about a backyard consultation. Central Washington Water, your water care professionals.
Mike, give us your website.
ServeWenatchee.org. Head there, and lots of information, ways you can give. Stamp Out Hunger, May 11th. Put food out for your postal carrier.
Okay, great. Hey, and if you need more info, you can always email me, maddog@nwi.net. I can turn you on to Pastor Mike. But hey, Street Duck and other stuff. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Athletes in the country. We'll be talking to football prospects in Texas, Connecticut, California, and Florida. We'll also head to the golf course with a Purdue commit in Indiana. And former NFL defensive lineman Jerry Ball will share some stories in our journey to greatness. That's all coming up next on Sports Stars of Tomorrow. Welcome to the show that searches America for the next generation of star athletes. I'm your host, Charles Davis. We have a lot to get to today, so let's get started. We'll get started in Central Texas with our 5-star feature. This is Lake Belton High School. It's on the outskirts of